The asphalt ahead rippled like something underneath was trying to break through. I slowed without meaning to, my foot easing off the gas as if my body had noticed the problem before my mind caught up. The headlights swept over the road in a steady cone, and within that light the pavement buckled, just slightly, then smoothed again. A subtle wave, like muscle flexing beneath skin. I blinked hard and leaned forward over the wheel. The road went still. Jesus, I muttered, the sound swallowed by the forest pressing in on both sides. Pines crowded the shoulders so tightly their branches knitted overhead, turning the highway into a tunnel of black needles and shadow. No moon, no stars, just my headlights and the pale centerline dragging itself toward me. I told myself it was fatigue. I'd been driving too long, later than I'd planned, chasing the last stretch of highway between towns that were already closed for the night. Long drives did things to your eyes. Heat shimmer, optical illusions. I'd read about that. The tires hummed, steady and familiar. I let the sound anchor me. 100 yards ahead, the asphalt rippled again. This time it didn't stop. The wave traveled across the road from left to right, slow and deliberate, as if something large had shifted its weight beneath the surface. The painted lines warped with it, bending and straightening like reflections on disturbed water. My breath caught. I pressed the brake gently, feeling the car's nose dip. Gravel popped softly under the tires as I slowed to a crawl. The forest was silent. No wind, no insects. Even the hum of the tires seemed muted now, as if the sound were being absorbed before it could escape. I rolled forward another few feet. The headlights revealed more movement, subtle at first, then undeniable. The road wasn't cracking. It wasn't collapsing. It was swelling, rising and falling in shallow pulses, each one sending a faint tremor up through the steering wheel. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." I laughed, short and sharp, the sound brittle in my own ears. It's the ground settling. Old road. Cold night. I'd driven worse stretches than this. Roads laid decades ago over bad soil. Frost heave. Subsidence. There were explanations. Still, my hands were sweating. I eased to a stop, the engine idling softly. When I cut the headlights, the darkness rushed in, complete and suffocating. I turned them back on immediately, my heart hammering. The rippling had spread. The asphalt ahead undulated in overlapping patterns now, as if multiple things were moving beneath it, each with its own rhythm. The surface gleamed wetly under my lights, though I knew it hadn't rained in days. The smell in the car changed, earthy, damp, like freshly turned soil. A low sound reached me, so faint I felt it more than heard it. A dull, muffled thump, repeated at irregular intervals. It vibrated through the soles of my feet, through the seat, up my spine. I pressed my palms flat against the wheel, grounding myself. "You're imagining it," I said. "You're tired. That's all." The thump came again, stronger. The road bulged upward in a long ridge, stretching from shoulder to shoulder. Tiny cracks spidered across the surface, not breaking it apart, but stretching it thin. I stared, frozen, as something pushed from below, distorting the asphalt like skin drawn tight over knuckles. I fumbled for my phone. No signal. Of course not. I tried anyway, thumbs clumsy, my breath coming fast. The screen reflected my face back at me, pale, eyes too bright. Another thump. The ridge rose higher. A memory surfaced, unbidden. A news story I'd half-read years ago about sinkholes opening without warning, swallowing cars whole. I clung to that explanation, desperate. The ground was unstable. That was all. Dangerous but natural. Then the sound changed. It wasn't a thump anymore. It was a scraping, a slow, deliberate drag beneath the road, like something heavy being pulled along concrete. The movement traveled forward, away from me, then stopped. The asphalt stilled. For a heartbeat, everything was quiet again. My ears rang in the silence. Relief washed through me, weak and shaky. I laughed, breathless. "See," I said. "Nothing." I put the car back in gear. The moment I rolled forward, The road exploded upward. The asphalt split with a wet, tearing sound, peeling back in thick, black sheets. Something pale surged up through the opening, forcing the road apart as if it were paper. I slammed the brakes, the car lurching violently as debris clattered against the undercarriage. I screamed. The thing beneath the road heaved, and I saw enough in that instant to know my earlier explanations had been lies I'd told myself to stay sane. It wasn't a creature in any shape I recognized. There were no limbs, no face, no clear boundaries. Just a mass of pale, fibrous material, threaded with darker veins, pulsing as it strained upward. It looked less like an animal and more like an organ, vast and alive, pressed into a space too small to contain it. And embedded in it, glinting in my headlights, were objects. Bits of metal, rusted signs, fragments of tires, a twisted guardrail half swallowed by the flesh. Things that had once been on the surface, dragged down and held there, layered into the thing's body over time. The scraping sound came again, closer now, and I realized with sick clarity that what I was seeing wasn't the whole of it. Just a part, pressure point, the surface tension of something immense moving beneath the ground. The forest began to tremble. Pine needles rained down, whispering against the car. Somewhere deep below, something shifted its weight, and the road buckled again. Not just ahead of me, but behind. I was on top of it. Panic snapped me into motion. I threw the car into reverse, tires squealing as I floored the gas. The vehicle lurched backward, jolting over cracked pavement as the ground heaved beneath me. In the rearview mirror, the road swelled and split, the asphalt lifting in long, uneven waves. The scraping turned into a roar, a sound too large to be contained by air alone. It vibrated in my chest, in my teeth, rattling the windows as if the car were caught in the wake of something vast and waking. I didn't look back again. The car burst free onto solid pavement, the forest thinning just enough to let the road straighten. I didn't slow until the movement beneath me faded, until the sound dwindled to a distant, subterranean murmur. When I finally pulled over, my hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the wheel to keep them from flying apart. I sat there, breathing hard, staring at the dark stretch of road ahead. It looked normal. No cracks, no movement, just asphalt and trees and night. For a long time, I wondered if I'd lost my mind, if exhaustion had finally snapped something loose, filling my vision with impossible things. Then I felt it, a faint, rhythmic vibration beneath the tires. Slow, patient, as if something far below was shifting, turning, and beginning very carefully to follow the sound of my engine as I drove away. My rearview mirror showed a different road than the one I was on. I noticed it by accident, the way you notice a stain on your shirt only after you've been wearing it all day. A flicker of movement where none should have been. I checked the mirror out of habit, expecting the familiar ribbon of asphalt unspooling behind me, the same dark forest hemming it in on both sides. What I saw instead made my stomach tighten. The road in the mirror was narrower, older. The asphalt looked rougher, cracked in long, pale seams that caught the glow of my taillights. The trees were closer too, their branches leaning inward, forming a canopy that pressed down on the road like a low ceiling. I glanced up through the windshield. Ahead of me, the highway was straight and freshly paved, the centerline bright and reflective. The forest stood back at a polite distance, orderly and silent. I looked back at the mirror. The wrong road was still there. I told myself it was perspective. Mirror's warped distance played tricks with depth. The fatigue didn't help. I'd been driving for hours, chasing the last stretch of highway through farmland that slowly gave way to trees. No radio stations, no cell service, just engine noise and the whisper of tires on pavement. I adjusted the mirror, tilting it slightly. The image shifted, but it didn't correct. The cracked road remained, stretching back into a darkness that felt thicker than the night around me. A chill crept up my arms. "Okay," I said aloud, my voice sounding too loud in the car. "You're tired." I focused forward on the real road. The headlights carved a clean tunnel through the night. Everything behaved the way it should. I drove on, counting the dashed lines as they passed beneath me, grounding myself in rhythm and motion. When I checked the mirror again, the discrepancy had grown. The road behind me curved gently to the left, even though I knew I hadn't taken a turn in miles. The forest there was denser, the trees darker, their trunks thick and uneven. A wooden fence ran alongside the road for a short stretch, its posts leaning at odd angles. There was no fence where I'd come from. I was sure of it. My heart began to beat harder, each pulse loud in my ears. I tried to recall the last few miles in detail, every bend, every landmark, but my memory slid away from me, vague and uncooperative. I laughed softly, the sound brittle. "Great," I muttered. "That's just great." I rolled down the window an inch. Cold air spilled in, sharp and grounding, carrying the smell of soil and cut grass. Farmland, then, not forest. That was right. That was what I'd been driving through. But in the mirror, the forest thickened. The road there dipped, descending into a shallow hollow where mist clung low to the ground. My tail lights illuminated it faintly. The red glow swallowed almost immediately. The cracks in the asphalt widened, branching like veins. A shape moved at the edge of the reflection. I snapped my eyes forward, heart hammering. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. The road ahead was unchanged. Straight, empty, safe. I didn't look back right away. When I finally forced myself to, the shape was clearer. Something stood on the shoulder of the mirrored road, half hidden among the trees. At first I thought it was a person, someone watching me pass, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too still. It leaned forward slightly, as if peering after my car, but it didn't move as I watched. I squeezed my eyes shut, counted to 5, then opened them again. The figure was gone. Relief washed through me, so intense it left me shaky. "You're seeing things," I whispered. "That's all." I drove faster. The faster I went, the more the mirror's world diverged. The road behind me narrowed further, the cracks knitting together until the surface looked almost stitched. The forest closed in completely now, branches tangling overhead, blotting out the sky. I could see details I shouldn't have been able to. Lichen on bark, pale mushrooms clustered at the base of trees, the glint of something metallic half buried in the dirt. The mirror wasn't just reflecting light. It was offering depth, distance, time. A sound reached me, faint and distant, like wind moving through leaves. It didn't match the stillness outside my windows. I turned the radio on, desperate for noise, but all I got was static, thin, whispering static that made my skin crawl. I shut it off again. The sound continued. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It seemed to be coming from behind me. I checked the mirror again, my pulse racing. The road in the reflection had dropped away entirely. In its place was a dirt track, rutted and muddy, leading into a clearing. The trees pulled back just enough to reveal a structure there, a low building sagging under its own weight. A farmhouse, maybe, or something that had once been one. Light glowed in one of its windows. My breath caught. I hadn't passed any buildings. I was sure of it. The land around me was empty, wide and open. The light in the mirror flickered. A terrible thought crept in, slow and insidious. What if the mirror isn't showing where I've been? What if it's showing where I'm going? The idea made my stomach churn. I shook my head hard, as if I could dislodge it. "No," I said. "No, that's not how mirrors work." But the reflection seemed to respond. The dirt track behind me grew clearer, more detailed. I could see footprints pressed into the mud, bare, elongated impressions that didn't quite look human. They led away from the farmhouse and onto the road, pointing directly toward where my car would be if it were in that world. Something moved in the lit window. I didn't see a face, just a shift of shadow, a suggestion of presence, a sense of attention. My chest tightened. I felt suddenly, irrationally exposed, as if the mirror were no longer just an object but an opening, a way of being seen. The highway ahead dipped, then rose gently. I crested the hill, and for a moment the headlights illuminated nothing but open road and distant fields. When I looked back at the mirror, the farmhouse was closer. Too close. The dirt track had shortened, compressed, as if distance meant nothing there. The light in the window was brighter now, spilling out onto the road. And standing in that light were figures. Not one, several. They lined the edge of the track, shoulder to shoulder, facing the road. Facing me. They didn't move. They didn't wave. They simply waited. My hands began to shake. "I'm losing it," I whispered. "I'm actually losing it." I reached up and flipped the mirror down, forcing it to point at the ceiling. The car felt suddenly smaller. The darkness pressed closer, intimate and thick. I focused on the road ahead, on staying between the lines. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Time felt unreliable, stretchy. I reached up and flipped the mirror back. The figures were gone. In their place was the road, smooth, paved, familiar. Relief crashed over me so hard I nearly cried. Then I noticed the detail that didn't belong. In the mirror, the car behind me wasn't empty. A silhouette sat in the back seat, perfectly still, its head tilted slightly as if listening. As if waiting for the moment when the world behind the glass finished bleeding through. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. Because ahead of me, through the windshield, the road had begun to crack in the same pale seams I'd only seen in the mirror, and the forest was leaning closer with every mile.